Class, today we're going to talk about the Kalam Cosmological argument. This argument was originally developed by Islamic scholars in the Middle Ages and more recently has been used by a Christian philosopher by the name of William Lane Craig. And so we're going to go over basically his little essay on the Kalam argument. So Al-Kindi and Al-Ghazali were the first proponents of this, and we see it mostly within Muslim scholarship, but brought into the Western world as well. And William Lane Craig is the one who popularized it in the late 70s, early 80s, and has done most of the work in this area. He's got a book called The Cosmological Argument. You can imagine what that is about. Another book, Reasonable Faith. He's got several other books that are on this subject and many others dealing with philosophy of religion and Christian apologetics. But here's the argument in question. It's pretty simple. It is a categorical syllogism, so it's logically valid. And so it's whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. If you remember from our logic section, that means that if the premises are true, the conclusion is necessarily true. That's the way deductive logic works. And we know this is a logically valid argument, so that means that we have to ask the question, are these premises more likely true than false? And if they are, that conclusion is inescapable. So our question really is it sound? Are these true premises? If it's all true premises, logically valid, then it's a sound argument. So we're going to go over some of the objections and some of the reasons for holding to these, and you get to ask yourself what answers the most questions and has the least amount of problems at the end of the day. So, must everything have a cause? And do tigers pop into existence? And do you see an elephant walk across your front yard and you think, well, elephants just happen here in North Carolina? Not really. You would think there was a cause for something like that. So, those are extreme examples, but just in our everyday lives, it seems that everything has a cause. So, unless the universe is some kind of special case, it seems that the universe must also have a cause. And that's what the cosmological argument is based on, is saying that, well, nothing in our experience has come into existence uncaused. So, we're going to have to figure out, well, if the universe fits into this category of everything that begins to exist has a cause, then, well, it also must have this cause. There's some other objections to this. J.L. Mackie, another philosopher, objects to the first premise. And he's got three different questions that we might want to ask here. So, what caused God? And all you have to do is go on the YouTube comment section to see this one and think, no one has ever considered this question before. The response to that and it's a good question to ask, but it has been considered, and Craig has an answer for it. And the answer that he gives is, well, look at the argument. The argument says whatever begins to exist has a cause. Well, in the conception of God that we're going to be talking about, well, God did not begin to exist. And part of this is the problem, much like Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways that we talked about in this class, is you can't just keep passing the buck back to infinity to say, well, what caused God? Well, God A caused God. Okay, well, what caused God A? Well, God A prime. Okay, what caused A God prime? Well, A God prime, and back and back, for eternity. So you've got a problem there with stretching back to an actual infinite. And if there were an actual infinite, we would not be able to get to this moment in time because you cannot traverse an actual infinite. So that's pretty problematic. So the argument says, well, only things that begin to exist, and um, there's going to have to be some kind of um, non-caused thing or non beginning to exist thing uh, to start the series. So has God existed for an infinite amount of hours? That's a good question to ask. To which Craig says, "Well, no, God, or this thing, this cause, has existed outside of time, as time seems to be bound to the universe itself. So, if the universe encapsulates time, then whatever created the universe would be outside of time. So, no, it would be." This cause will be logically prior, but not maybe temporally prior, because time wouldn't exist. Time would have started at the Big Bang. So it would seem, using the reasoning that Craig uses, is that God would be timeless. So, oops. So here's some other evidence that's given in Craig's essay on this is the problem of infinite numbers of things, potential infinite, and things that are indefinite. So we have, time started at the Big Bang, and it goes. Seems like it will keep going indefinitely, but it won't go for an infinite amount of time, just an indefinite amount of time, because it had a beginning point. So, a question we could ask is, has this class gone on forever? Well, no. Come back, let's say the semester never ends. Come back in a million years and say, well, is the class still going on? Well, yeah, yeah. Have we been here forever yet? No, we haven't. And so we can perhaps approach infinity, but we never actually get to infinity. So it is indefinite, not infinite. And so there's a video I'm going to show or put in the folder for the class on Hilbert's Hotel. So Hilbert shows, he's a mathematician, and he shows that actual infinites in reality would be absurd. And so we have this mathematical and logical absurdity of actual infinites, that we wouldn't be able to cross an actual infinite and get to this moment if there was an infinite amount of moments before this one. So we should just reject that notion that, well, there's been an infinite amount of moments in time before this, that the universe has just always been here. So the universe seems to have began to exist, and this fits our best models in cosmology, and it fits the mathematical and logical things that we've worked out, or not, well, not me, but the people who were smart enough to do those things. So his hotel, and so you can stop this and go watch that video. It's 60 seconds long, so the hotel is impossible, and so if it's impossible, then an actual infinite is also impossible. So if we have a beginningless series of events in time, would seem like an infinite number of things. So if the universe has always existed, then there would be this actual infinite, and well, this can't exist. So the series of past events has to be finite. So the universe had to begin to exist mathematically, logically, and from what modern science tells us with modern cosmology and physics and things like that. So, and to belabor the point a little bit more, one cannot reach an actual infinite collection of things by events or events by addition. So again, has this class gone on forever? No. I know this video may seem like it's gone on forever, but it's only been about 10 minutes now. So adding to something can't get you to infinity. Taking something away, if you take 100 away from infinity, how much do you have left? An infinite amount. That's just the the way infinity works. So you can't get to infinity by addition. You cannot count down from infinity by taking things away from it. So we can't have an actual infinite in reality. So it's not as a kind of material reality. And so it would seem that, again, the universe began to exist. So what Craig is arguing here is two different things, really. We have the impossibility of actual infinites and the impossibility of reaching infinity by addition. So not only does Craig have the mathematical and logical arguments against actual infinites, but also Big Bang cosmology, which is the best and most widely accepted view of the universe on his side as well. So we have Einstein questions the steady state model back in the day. We have Alexander Friedman and Georges Lemaitre arriving at the numerical formulation for an expanding universe. So if the universe is expanding, then it was used to be closer together, hotter, and that can all go back to one point. So they came up with calculations, and the universe is around 14.6 billion years older, or something like that. Edwin Hubble confirms the expansion of the universe, and so the Big Bang. In the 60s, it's also confirmed with background radiation, and we have some other people more recently who have come up with more proofs for it, and say that even if multiverse theories do work, that they would still fall under this kind of proof. The steady state models that were in vogue for much of the 18th and 19th centuries and early 20th centuries were replaced by the Big Bang model. And these steady state models, basically, this was based on Aristotle's writings, that he thought that the universe had just always been here. And even some of the medieval philosophers thought that it was Ibn Sina thought that the steady state model worked, even though he was a Muslim and believed God had created the world. He also said, well, God was never not busy. God wasn't just laying around doing nothing. So the universe had always existed because God has always existed. But as far as steady state models in science they have not fared well in the 20th century. The background radiation has basically disproven any steady state models. The universe was more dense, more hot than it is now. It's expanding, and this has been fairly conclusively proven, and the alternatives have not really been very convincing. So you see sometimes on the popular level the expanding and contracting universe, but this has not been demonstrated by the known laws of physics or observational evidence. It seems like our universe will keep expanding, and if that is the case, then this Big Bang only happened one time. Stephen Hawking, maybe you've heard of him. He tries to avoid this singularity and tries to avoid the Big Bang in a few ways. So he uses imaginary numbers, and the imaginary numbers, I really don't know how to explain it too well. But for the point of Craig's argument, Craig criticizes it, saying that he confuses the distinction between space and time, and says, well, this is not really changing the fact of the singularity of the Big Bang. It's just hiding it behind this this problem of imaginary numbers, but it doesn't even really do that because you still have the singularity. And it's just bad metaphysics. Space is relation of betweenness, and time is of sequence of moments. So those two things are different in a way, and so you have to take in kind of these metaphysical considerations that it seems that Hawking conflates in his writing to try and get around the problem of the universe beginning to exist. I don't know why this looks like this. What this slide says is if the necessary and sufficient conditions for the universe are eternal, then why is the universe not eternal? The answer that Craig gives here is that it is agent causation that started the universe. So we could say, okay, well, maybe it was a universe creating mechanism. Well, where did this mechanism come from? Was it eternal? Why does it exist? Is it just the brute fact? That doesn't seem satisfying. But what Craig argues is that, well, if the necessary and sufficient conditions for creating the universe were there 14 billion years ago, and they were there before that, they were there after that, because the universe began to exist at some certain point, what was holding those things back? And so he argues that, well, it was a conscious mind. So it was an agent that had the free will to hold off from creating a universe and then, okay, I'm going to do it now. So I have the ability, being an agent, I have the necessary and sufficient conditions for picking up my glass of water, and I have decided to wait 17 minutes into the video to do such things. So that's agent causation, the lifting of my glass. So if the cause of the universe is eternal, since we can't go back and say, well, it was caused by this, and then this was caused by this, and this was caused by this, because you go back into the problem of the actual infinite, then it would have to be some eternal thing. And so that eternal thing must be a mind. It must be an agent of some sort that can act at certain moments to create things. So he says, the best explanation of this would be some kind of powerful mind. Okay, I don't know why my slides are messing up when I'm recording like this, but so all those words should be not on top of the picture. But yeah, there's me and my goat, one of my goats. I think the largest my herd ever got was 21 goats. So yeah, I like goats. So the anthropic principle, or goat-thropic principle, I don't know. So the universe also, this is something else Craig's like, hey, yeah, I'm just going to throw this in here. The universe also seems to be pretty complex, pretty sensitive balance of initial conditions that favor human life. And this is something that's acknowledged by astrophysicists, things like that. It's like, well, this is a pretty lucky coincidence for us, or something. So this principle, Craig says, suggests personhood for the creator. So the creator, he says, if our argument works, if the Kalam cosmological argument is successful, we have an agent. So something that has a mind that can act with free will. It's metaphysical, it's not or immaterial would be a better word. So it is matter is limited in many ways, and so this would be an immaterial being, an immaterial mind. It is spaceless, it is timeless, it is free, and it is intelligent. So think back to the 5 ways of Thomas Aquinas, and he ends each one by saying, and this we call God. So he's not going all the way for like full-blown Christianity in those arguments, but he's saying, this first cause, this necessary being, or whatever. So here Craig is doing something similar. This is a minimal case. and he's saying, well, these things seem to be best fit the bill for this cause of the universe that began to exist. So if our argument is successful, then we have this free, intelligent, spaceless, timeless, immaterial agent. So if Craig and Al-Kindi's argument is successful, then the universe began to exist, which is what science is telling us as well. And it seems to have been brought about by a free, powerful, intelligent creator. So Craig says, hence, amazing as it may seem, the most plausible answer to the question of why something exists rather than nothing is that God exists. So it's a pretty interesting argument. It's been around for a long time. Some of the things like the universe beginning to exist have been pretty well established by modern cosmology as well. So you have to ask yourselves, it's a logically valid categorical syllogism. Are these premises more likely true than false? Are there alternatives? And what answers the most questions and has the least amount of problems?